Hi, I'm MJ from Lioness Publications, and good afternoon. I want to spend a little bit of time just talking about what's going on with Venezuela. As I mentioned, there's a lot of saber rattling going on, and there are some indications, things might change, but that's probably more into the future, but I'll talk about that in a bit. So, pretty much nothing has really changed. They've got ships off the coast. Uh, the only thing that has come to light is that it seems that the opposition leader may actually be working more with Trump than people realize. So there may be some piece of her that's coming in to do something. Now, what I want to do is I want to put a chart up, and then we'll talk about what's in this chart. So the first thing we see is on 11/11 of this year. And I talked about this already. The Venezuela chart that I'm using has Saturn conjunct Mars, and it's retrograde. So in effect, Saturn is restriction, Mars is what? Actions. They were really restricted in what they were doing. It's hard to say whether it was because of their own careful handling of the matter or because they just didn't want to incite whatever was going on. Or it may have been a little bit of both. Next thing we see on 11/12, Jupiter is trining Mars. So in this case, they're doing more activity. They were starting to do some drills, things like that. Nothing very overt, but again, sort of beefing up things. 11/24, which is coming up, we're going to have Jupiter squaring Mercury, and this is for Venezuela. The chart is broken up into 3 sections as to where that angle is occurring. Now that's retrograde. I expect at this time, with the Jupiter squaring Mercury, there may be some talks, possibly with the United States or with other of their allies, and we're not going to really know about them because they're going to be sort of under the covers. That's what the retrograde is. But they're likely not going to go well. That's a square. So it's going to take a lot of effort for them to be able to achieve what they want to get at that time. Now, on 11/28, we have Uranus trining the Sun. It is retrograde, so that means that we won't know what is happening. We may see some indications. The Sun is their identity. Uranus is something unexpected. It's trine, so it's a nice unexpected. So this is actually something in their favor. So maybe whatever is escalating sort of comes back after Thanksgiving or around that time. The next thing we see is around 12/10/25. And this again is in Venezuela's chart. Neptune is what? The fog. It's opposing what? Their identity, the sun. It's retrograde. We're not going to see much of this on the surface. We may see bits of it coming out. So this might be propaganda, lies, deception. So there's a lot of this going on. And it's in Venezuela's chart, so that's meaning it's happening to them. So it could be that maybe where they think, someone may be lying to them, something along that line. But again, nothing that we can get a really firm finger on. Next thing we have for 12/31, we have in Maduro's chart, Pluto conjuncting the Sun South Node. Now, in this case, South Node is where we give out. This I had already noted in some of the other topics on Venezuela. And this indicates that we might actually have something where force comes to bear on him. That's Pluto, manipulation, power, and in effect asks, gets him to leave or something, or he makes some decision at this point. Maybe he's offered some type of deal. Now, these are the transits so far. So let's take a look at 1/4, and this is next year. In this case, we have Saturn in conjunct Saturn. So this is restrictions on Venezuela, and in effect, they can't get there from here. So this is possibly trying to maybe look at another type of government, maybe trying to see how they can work this out, but it's an inconjunct. Now it is direct, which means we're going to be able to see this. Now, a nice thing here is on 2/1/26, we're going to have the North Node conjuncting Pluto. So that means where you take in effect, is just 1 second. Where Venezuela takes in is hitting on the planet that's sort of responsible in their chart for, in effect, a rebuilding, new foundations. So around 2-1, it would be interesting to see what happens here. So it could be that, yes, maybe the United States works out a deal for Maduro to leave. Next thing we see, though, is in 3-4-26 in the United States chart, we have a progression. That progression is Sun squaring Mars. Now, in this case, identity of the United States in friction with what? Aggression, actions. So this could indicate some aggressive activity towards someone, something. Now, next thing we see is a 4-28-26 in Venezuela's chart. This is one of the angles that I was worried about, but it's next year. It's Pluto in conjunct Mars. So we've got two of the planets that usually are involved in aggression here. We've got Pluto, that power thing, a power grab, and with the aggression. So in this case, it's Pluto in conjunct Mars. You can't get there from here. But again, it keeps on trying. In conjunction, sort of first time you can't, but you adjust it to try and get there. Next thing we see, and this is a Maduro's chart, and this is progression, 525, we see Venus trying Mars. So this is actually, there may be some type of peace situation that comes about here. It's hard to tell, especially with the date. Progressions, again, it could be plus or minus, a month or two. Next thing we see in the United States chart on 7-3-26 in the solar arc, we see Pluto squaring Jupiter. This one I'm worried about, and I have been for a while, but not so much with other countries. I'm worried about it in the United States. Reason being is Pluto is control, square tension. Jupiter is what? In the United States chart, it's the first house, which is the identity of the United States, which will be the people. So this is, I think, next year, right around the time of the 250th anniversary, we're going to have some severe issues in the States. So I don't think that is affecting Venezuela. Next thing we see is that 12-13-26. For Maduro's chart, we see Sun conjuncting Saturn. Now this could indicate, and I believe this is in his, it's not in the transit, it's another one. So this is indicating, I believe it's a solar arc. This is indicating his identity has come to a point where, in effect, he's possibly restricted, restrained in some degree. But again, we'll need to see what happens before then. Now, let's take a look at get one other chart up here, and this is Trump's chart. Okay, I know it's busy, but I want to take a look to see, is he going to do anything right now? What we're seeing in the other table is that, yes, there's things going on, but nothing that says that Venezuela is going to be attacked right now. There may be some sword rattling and stuff like that. So, one of the things you've seen this week is the result of so many angles that are hitting him. And it's not typical that so many things hit at a time. So what we have, and I've talked about this continuously, we have Saturn that is hitting his Mars. Saturn restriction, Mars is action. He's going to be very frustrated. So even though this has sort of moved past it, it's still not that far away. So he's going to feel, in effect, the waves from it. He's got Neptune. That is hitting his ascendant. So what is this? Foggy vision, unclear, delusions, deception. And this may be that he's doing to others or that others are doing to him. And I think that's really important. As noted earlier this week, one of the letters for the pardons, it was noted that was signed in the exact same signature, which is theoretically impossible. Usually every single time you sign, it's a little different. In this case, it looks like someone may have used the auto pen and maybe put Trump's name to a pardon. So there may be deception going on without him knowing what's really happening. So that's something to keep in mind. We also have Uranus, which is hitting his ascendant. Uranus is what? Change, erratic, and it's hitting his identity. So we have a lot of things that are pushing and prodding him to do some type of action, which is why Venezuela is there right for the picking. So he can do a lot of saber rattling at them. He could bring up all the forces. Now, I do want to note, in addition, I have noted many times Pluto moving into the sixth house. That's the house of health, services, but also it's still within the degrees to be able to do an inconjunct to his identity, which means massive upheaval here, just in his persona. And we're seeing that. I noted at one time, the Neptune coming in is going to sort of fade him. And you can see that. The Saturn coming in also is doing the same thing. Now, I want to note that we have Mars here, little Mars down here in the purple. And I don't usually get to the Mars and the planets, the lighter planets, just because they have very limited interaction over just a limited amount of time. But I thought it's important to mention because it is what? An inconjunct to Mercury. So he's fighting. Who's he fighting with now? Marjorie Green. He's fighting with Venezuela. He's fighting with a lot of people. So this is, he's definitely verbed up, but it doesn't mean that he is going to take something out on Venezuela. So let's take a look at our next chart here. Okay. 1 second. And this is the United States chart. So we were looking at what Trump is sort of looking, thinking, feeling, but now let's take a look at the chart of the United States. So what do we have? Well, first of all, as noted with the, airlines and stuff like that, we've got Jupiter right around 25 degrees, which happens to be between the sun and the North Node. More importantly, it's right on Mercury right now. Mercury happens to rule the 7th house. 7th house is allies and known enemies. So again, just too much of this. We've got communication here, and who's this impacting? In effect, this could be Venezuela. We also have, from the 12th house, Mars, which is transiting there. So think here that we're doing some type of covert activity, because that's what the 12th house is. It is hitting a planet in the 7th house. What is that planet? It's going to be hitting Uranus. So what's Uranus? Planet of change. So erratic behavior. So could there be some action? Yes. But Mars is not something that lasts a long time. So it tends to be sort of a quick type of action. It was a Mars in a progression or in a solar arc, definitely something to worry about. If it's Pluto in this type of chart, then yes, something to worry about. Now, one thing also is that Mars is going to be moving out from the 12th house into the 1st house. So that does mean for about 2 months that since Mars's aggression action, the United States is going to be into this action type of mode, maybe aggressive. So yeah, you might see more boat bombings and stuff like that, which is a good thing anyway. But you might see more of that for the next 2 months. I'm not seeing at this point a removal of Maduro, except it might happen in December when he has that Pluto conjunct the South Node. I'm seeing more gradual things. I'm seeing a lot of saber rattling. Maybe a little, sort of undercover type of activity here. I'm not seeing a war. So they could go on land, but just very, very minor type of expeditions. I hope you liked us and have a great day. Bye now.